I'm Scott Simmy, and joining me on today's edition of our Byte micro podcast is Joel Koscielski, a production engineer at InDro Forge. Welcome, Joel.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first off, for someone who doesn't know, what does InDro Forge actually do?
So, InDro Forge is the hardware hub of InDro Robotics. So, it's the space where we design, develop, prototype, and produce the hardware that goes into InDro products as well as to our client products.
And I understand from writing about InDro Forge, maybe a year or so ago, that we've got a vast collection of additive and subtractive tools. For someone unfamiliar with those terms, what does that mean?
So it really comes down to what is the material that you're starting from and how are you turning that into the shape that you want it to be. So subtractive tooling, as it implies, is about taking away material. So if you think about something like a beautiful stone carving or, a wood carving, like a stump or something like that that's been carved with a chainsaw to make a beautiful piece of art, those are subtractive processes. We do the same thing using our tooling with metals and plastics to be able to create the different parts that we need for, say, the sheet metal that we use for our enclosures or the plastic pieces that we use to create interfaces for our buttons and things like that. Additive is really about working through a liquid material or a powder to be able to layer by layer build up a part with what's commonly known as 3D printing. We have, I think, 5 or 6 different printers here that work with a number of different materials depending on the accuracy we need, the surface finish we need, and the material properties.
So let's say I'm a potential client and really I have nothing but the proverbial napkin sketch and I walk in the door. What can InDro Forge do for me?
InDro can Forge would help with the whole process. So if you have a napkin sketch, it probably means you have a pretty good idea of what you're trying to get or what the intended outcome is. We can start from that and work with you to understand kind of how you're going to make that happen in terms of the parts that you're going to use, how you're going to define success for your prototype or for your product, and work all the way through concept design, iterative prototyping, detailed design, early small batch production, and help you move into production if you're ready for that using suppliers that are able to handle that volume.
And tell me something about the staff. What sort of background do these folks have?
So we have a pretty wide range of backgrounds. My background personally, I spent about 10 years in the medical device industry learning how to develop products that meet a very high regulatory standard and then taking those prototypes all the way into hundreds of thousands of unit production. Some of our other staff have backgrounds in robotics for 10 plus years. Some of them are relatively new coming out of school, which means they're just learning lots, which is great because it gives us more capacity to be able to handle all sorts of different things. Pretty wide range, and one of the big things about the InDro Forge team is that we always make sure that we have a well-filled, I'm going to say Rolodex, although that's a bit of a dated term, of different folks that we can reach out to when our expertise isn't enough. We know who to ask to be able to make sure that we can find the right solution for the problem we're facing.
Now, it's been a while, but I've been up to the shop at Ottawa's Bayview Yards, and there's some pretty impressive equipment. Is there anything that stands out as your own personal favorite?
I'd say it changes given time. One of the ones that it will always have a special place in my heart is our water jet. So we do a lot of sheet metal enclosures, and in order to be able to do those quickly, we use the water jet technology, which is a 60,000 psi stream of very fine water that has a sand mixed into it that is used to cut everything from thin plastics all the way up to 4-inch plus thick steel. And we'll use that to cut out the 2D profile of the enclosure that we're working with. We'll take it over to other machines to add threads to things, bend it, get it ready to be sent out to be welded and powder coated. So it gives us the ability to do that, small batch production in-house and keep things moving quickly because we can iterate very quickly using it.
It's always pretty busy up there, but what do you see as the future of InDro Forge?
Well, one of the things that we've been kind of moving into over the last year is getting into custom drone development and continuing to find new solutions for some of the problems we've been facing around security of supply and making sure that we're able to find things that meet exactly the needs that we have. We have a lot of different suppliers that we can get things from, but sometimes the things that they're able to provide don't quite meet what we need. So custom solutions that we can have in our back pocket to provide to our customers, and developing those to a level where they're things that are ready to go on the shelf that we can grab and integrate is something we'll continue to grow into and continue to do more of. Just being able to provide that more unique provision from things you might be able to find elsewhere.
I like to keep these podcasts fairly short, but is there anything I haven't touched on that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things around prototyping and around kind of the hardware development side of things is really working with folks who have different perspectives to be able to ask questions. So one of the things that that folks coming to us might not know is how the decisions they're making may impact things later down the line, how the way you prototype things and develop them early on can result in more work later. The folks that we have here really have had a chance to develop skills in that transition from small to large batch. And that's able to give us a chance to help kind of ease that transition when you get to it, instead of having to go back and redo a bunch of things later on.
And finally, how can potential clients get in touch?
So I think the easiest way would probably be through the InDro Robotics website. There's a great contact form there that will give people a chance to kind of give us a little bit of info to start with, and then go from there.
Great. Joel Koscielski, production engineer at InDro Forge. Thanks very much.
Thank you.